Hey guys, Pedro here to tell you about the latest from Neaera. All is Dust, out June 28th on Metal Blade Records. The album has 10 tracks, 48 minutes in length, and this is the band's 8th full-length studio album. They are a German metal band. And as far as the design goes, this is an album that hides how fluid and how dynamic the record really is, because at first glance, the sound, the experience, and the design all together give you this impression of a very cohesive, a very balanced, a very linear, and perhaps even a very dense sounding album. And that is what stays with you. But if you decide to stay with it and listen to it and dive deeper, you will see that the album is not quite like that. The album does have a lot of ebbs and flows. The album has a lot of life, a lot of energy. It does have a dark blanket that covers it, but underneath that blanket of darkness, there is movement. There is progression. There is a sense of a forward motion. It's a record that doesn't really stand still. It's always taking the listener from one journey into the next, and that obviously gives fluidity to the album and how you perceive the record. So it's an interesting design because it enhances the qualities of the individual songs, but it also brings into the surface the commonality of those same songs, and that's why it gives two different perceptions depending on how familiar you are with the band and how much time you're putting into the listening experience of the album itself. Now, as far as the sound is concerned, this album really puzzled me because I listened to this record multiple times, and the first couple of times I was listening to it more in the background, driving. The record is playing. You're not necessarily diving as deep into the record. You're just kind of like taking it in at a very superficial level. And at that very superficial level, I'm listening to this album, and one song sounds like a black metal song. The next song sounds still like a black metal song, but with more melodic elements. Then the next track feels almost like a metalcore song with blackened elements. And that sort of movement in sound and that sort of ability to not really pinpoint what the album is about sound-wise, or at least not put it under one single umbrella, really left me scratching my head. It left me wondering, what do I have here? What kind of record is this? And to be honest with you, that's what allowed me to dive deeper into the album. That sense of perhaps not feeling comfortable, not really sure of what I have here, and trying to feel more comfortable with it and understand it better is what brought me deeper and deeper into the listening experience. So the sound on this album, in the beginning, it might seem a little bit outside the box, but the more you listen to this record, the more you realize, same as the structure, the more you realize that this ability to blend in different genres or elements of different genres to really create something unique, something that's unique to the band, worked really well from start to finish. I mean, I don't think there's a song on this album that feels out of place or it doesn't belong there. This album has, first of all, great sound all around. It's an album that has great production behind it, and that great production really allows you to see all of these different influences, all of these different elements coming together to create almost a unique experience on a song-by-song basis, but an overall very unique experience as far as the overall record is concerned. And then you can start pinpointing where the different pieces are going and what kind of image those pieces are creating as far as this big puzzle is concerned. And the first thing that I noticed was the bass. The bass on this record has an incredible impact. First of all, it pops a lot. They didn't hide it in the mix. They didn't try to use it more as a layer. They rather give the bass some predominant roles throughout the album and throughout the songs on this record that gives the bass a little bit more of a stage to stand on. And I like the bass having that sort of predominance. It's not overly predominant, but it does have a predominance to it because it goes into that more dark feel, more dark ambiance, that dark vibe that the record has. The bass helps define it at times, and it really gives it a more pinpoint approach, or a pinpoint sense of visibility that you could feel it. You not only hear it, but you could feel it. The bass really helps define that experience and that darkness of the album. The other element that I felt that really helped define that darkness of the album is obviously the guitar sound. The guitars on this record have a lot of life, a lot of energy, melodic, heavy, dark, sometimes almost painful in terms of the experience that they offer, how the sound interacts with you, has that sense of inherent pain built into it. So the guitars are pretty much the energy source of this album, really pushing different parameters, different ideas, different dynamics, and always having these two sides of a single coin. On one hand, you have the heavier side of the guitar sound pairing really well with the drums to create this backdrop of volume. Not always heaviness, not always thickness, but volume. I want to go with volume because I think it's a better description of how the drums and guitars operate in unison with one another. But at the same time, you have the guitars breaking away from that with a little bit more of a melodic drive that is just piercing at times. Very melodic, very dark in a very piercing way that allows you to see a little bit of distance between where the drums and guitars, as far as the volume is concerned, are, and that more piercing sound that it separates itself. By doing that, you're creating a sense of depth and you're creating a larger footprint. You're also creating movement. Now, the other interesting aspect is that the guitars are not the only ones that are doing this. The drums are doing the same thing. There's a heavier, thicker drum sound that stays solid in the back, building the foundation, pairing up with that guitars, creating that volume that is really a key factor throughout the entire record. But then you have the cymbals splashing very loudly, and that creates also a sense of movement because it allows the drum sound, outside of that heavier, thicker one that grounds the record, it allows the upper echelon of the drum sound to have a little bit more of a stretched out approach. It really starts to move forward, but it doesn't have an end line. It doesn't finish. It just kind of dissipates. But when you have that happening coming from the back, and then you have the guitars separating themselves with that more melodic driven sound from the front, you start to create a very large footprint, and the volume that the record has and the density that the album has comes from that ability to create an album that just has a really large size. It's a record that sounds big across all the different parameters, even when some of them have a little bit more of a funnel vision and have a little bit more of a penetrating sound. There's something else behind it creating that volume once again. So it's an interesting record sound-wise from that perspective. And within that volume, you're going to find aggression, you're going to find intensity, you're going to find that darkness that really permeates throughout the entire record. You're going to find heaviness. All of that stuff exists within this space, created on one end by the guitars a little bit more on the forefront, and on the other end by the drums a little bit more on the back end of the sound. Really interesting approach. This gives the record that idea that I mentioned earlier when I was talking about the structure, because it does give an idea that the album is very dense, but at the same time it does create a lot of ebbs and flows, and it makes the record a little bit more alive and a little bit more fluid. So it's an album that is able to have this Jekyll and Hyde perspective in the design and in the sound from start all the way to the finish line. Now, the vocals on this record are very consistent, always very intense, always very aggressive. I enjoyed some of the backing vocals and the layers that they used at key points within the songs, because if you have an album that volume-wise feels big, you have to do something vocally to kind of add some layers to it, so that you're not just depending on the heaviness of the vocal delivery and on the aggression of the vocal delivery. Now you're making it feel like there's a lot more oomph in it, and this album does it sporadically, but it does it well enough that the vocals don't feel separated from the sound or from what the sound is doing, and they definitely don't feel like just another layer on top of this record. Now, it's not an easy album to define, and it's not an easy album to quantify, but it's an easy album to say that it has incredible quality across each and every single one of these songs. I think this is one of those records that really depends on what your expectations are of the band coming into this record, and what side of the band do you like the most. Do you like the more black metal side, or do you like the more metalcore side? So I think depending on where you are as a fan or as a listener, this album may be a complete disaster. It may completely miss the point for you, or it might be the best album you've heard all year. It's a very polarizing album across all of its parameters. I enjoyed it because within that idea of being polarizing, I found my niche. I found a comfortable spot where I could still enjoy the journey that the album put me through. but I understand it will be a polarizing record. Now, as far as favorite songs are concerned, I want to start off with the Antidote to Faith. This is the opening track on the album. It has a very quick, slow intro, and then it becomes a massive, heavy sounding song with big drums, heavy and melodic, penetrating guitars, but also those thick sounding heavy guitars matching up with the drum sound, creating that backdrop, and then the more driven guitars a little bit ahead of them, which, like I said earlier, creates depth in the sound. And this allows the heavier side of the track to really bring the track down, hold it down, and then have that more melodic upper layer that is the driven one that really pushes the song forward. The vocals stay very consistent with its aggression and intensity, and I love the way the bass pops, because that darkness that this album has, as far as the atmosphere, as far as the blanket that it covers it, on this track is perhaps better noticed through the bass sound, which I really enjoyed. Another song that I really enjoyed is All Is Dust. This is by far not only my top 3, but I would say this is probably my favorite song on the entire record. It's a very dark song. It's a heavy song, both musically and vocally, dark and heavy, musically and vocally, and it has this almost feeling of being unforgiven at times. I love how the melodic side of this track is more interlaced with the darkness, and the overall experience of the song is not staying as much on top as it is in the Antidote to Faith. This allows the heavy dark sound in the atmosphere to really permeate at least through the first 2/3 of the track itself. Then at the end of those 2/3, there's this more breathable spot within the song where it strips down, becomes super melodic. It really sheds the skin almost. And once you get over that, it returns back to that darkness, it returns back to that heaviness, but now it returns to it in an exponential way, because it starts to grow exponentially until it closes off with a chorus, with a sense of heaviness, with a sense of brutality. So it's a song that almost has a built-in interlude, at the very least, a very cool melodic bridge that connects the first 2/3 of a very consistent and balanced song with a song that then takes that element and grows upon it. Last but definitely not least, In Vain, a more open sounding song. Of the 3 that I picked, this is perhaps the one that has a little bit more of a metalcore influence and a much less influence of black metal, and that's why it's a little bit more breathable. That's why it has an easier sound to it. It's a very guitar driven song, but with a more groovier riff, for a lack of a better term, a more melodic, groovier riff that really stands out and becomes the calling card of the entire song. And because of that more openness, there's a lot less darkness as far as the atmosphere and as far as the sound is concerned, but it's still a very robust song with super intense vocals. I felt the vocals on this track come across a lot more intense and a lot less aggressive, but that is also because of the nature of the sound itself. This is it, Neaera, All Is Dust, out June 28th on Metal Blade Records. Let me know your thoughts on the band, on the singles. Hit me up in the comment section. I'll see you all at the next one. Take care, guys.